Hi, this is Emerald and welcome to the Diamond Net, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the chakras as well as how to meditate on the chakras. So before I get into talking about the chakras, I want to drive forward the idea that the chakras is a spiritual map. It is sort of a framework for interfacing with consciousness. Now, very often I'll talk on my channel about self-inquiry and various other more direct methods of interfacing with consciousness, but the chakras is more of like a framework that you can think of. Now, when it comes to frameworks, you want to be careful not to mistake the framework for truth itself. So you don't want to get caught up in the chakras because even the chakras occur within the illusion of duality. That said, I think that it can be a helpful tool in your arsenal if you're trying to become enlightened or you're trying to get just more in touch with your own existential nature. I think it's very important to let yourself resonate with whatever you resonate with. Like, don't get too caught up in one particular way of thinking about things because then you get stuck. What I find is that when it comes to teachers and various spiritual maps and various ideas relative to spirituality, is that I kind of go in and out of resonance with them. And I think it shows a kind of growth. So you don't want to get too stuck on it. So if you're somebody who's like, oh, never chakras, it has to be a more direct method, I say, maybe open up your mind just a little bit more toward it because you're not really sure. There's not really a path to enlightenment. It's called the pathless path for that reason. And I truly think that every step that I've taken on my journey, including ones like I've gone into Jungian psychology and I've looked at the chakras and other various spiritual maps, I think all of those were very important steps for me. So like I said, let yourself resonate with what you resonate with. Don't think, oh, it has to be the most direct method, or don't think that, oh, well, I have to stick to the chakras. You want to make sure that you're doing something that actually feels right to you. So for myself, if you're familiar with my channel, or even if you're not, basically 7 years ago, I had a couple of spiritual experiences, where I had temporarily transcended the ego, and then it basically left me back in my normal mundane state of consciousness afterward, wondering, oh, how do I get back to that? So I tried a lot of different things over the years, some of them very, very out there, some of them a little bit more conventional, and I do consider the chakras to have been an important step on my journey. Because I think what it can give you is it can give you an idea of really how consciousness and matter kind of work together, because the chakras are sort of almost like in a very systematic, hierarchical kind of way. Now this can also, like I said, be a double-edged sword. You don't want to get too caught up in the ideas and hierarchies of that and think, oh, I need to get up to the higher chakras, I need to open my third eye. Don't get too focused on this. But if you use it for an understanding of how you work and how societies work and how systems work in general, I think it can be very valuable. Now, the chakras is a very, very popular map here in the West because I think it does have kind of that hierarchical feel where you feel oh, I can work on these 7 levels, because in the West, mostly we have 7 chakras with little minor chakras, but mostly the 7. And it's oh, with each of those things, I can improve that. But that's kind of the mindset that you don't want to approach this with, because a lot of people go into it say, oh, I want to get to those higher states of consciousness, kind of thinking that there's somehow lower and higher states of consciousness, there's some kind of place to be getting to, and, using it as a goal. So don't get caught in goal-mindedness when you're approaching the chakras. Don't think, oh, I want to awaken the Kundalini, and then I'm going to be this spiritual person. I think that approaching it more in the sense of becoming aware of what is there is a lot more valuable than trying to convince yourself that you're experiencing the chakras in the way that they're often depicted, because my experience with the chakras has never been that. I've never seen these wheels and I've never really felt an exact wheel. I more so approach it thinking about what are the sensations that are in the area, and as a means for me to become more connected to the body and more aware of what's going on with the body. All right, so now that I have those caveats out of the way, let's talk about what the chakras are. So basically, the chakras are 7 major energy centers located along the center meridian of the body. and they're said to spin like wheels. And if the chakra is healthy, it'll spin quite normally. But if it's not healthy or if it's blocked, it will obstruct the flow of energy. Now this is important because the chakras are said to kind of be an in-between between physical matter and spirit. So all of the dimensions of self are connected together by these chakras along the center meridian. Now, there are other chakras too, other minor chakras throughout the body called nadis, and you can look into that if you're interested in that. But mostly in the West, we focus on the 7 major energy centers. Now, each chakra is said to correspond to a particular faculty of life, from the most physical at the root chakra all the way at the base of the spine, to the most spiritual at the crown chakra all the way at the top of the head. So the idea is to open up all of these chakras so that they create a channel between physical matter and higher consciousness. So people who are trying to open and balance the chakras are trying to create a more unobstructed flow from non-physical consciousness to physical matter. So we have the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the solar plexus chakra, the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye chakra, and the crown chakra. And so that's the order that they go in, from the lowest and most material and the highest and most spiritual. Now, before I go into the system any further, I want to also make a few caveats about thinking of things in terms of lower and higher and assigning value to those things. So the lower 3 chakras are the feminine chakras. That's the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus chakra. And they correspond most to the physical world and what it means to exist here as a separate human being. Now, over the course of the past 5,000 years or so, we've had more of a bias toward the upper chakras, or things that relate to the upper chakras, like spirituality, expression, ideas, and things like that. Those are the masculine chakras. But those lower chakras, if you look back at, let's say, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, there's always kind of like this idea that these lower chakras are maybe less important, and thinking of existence and being in physical existence as a negative thing. And so there's always this resistance to, things like finances or sexuality or having self-esteem, because those religions preach poverty, chastity, and, basically transcending the ego, things like that. So the lower 3 chakras have been seen as lesser. Now, in more modern times, we're starting to maybe be able to integrate those things a little bit better into spiritual practice, where you don't necessarily have to steal away from physical life. You don't have to go sit up on a mountain. You don't have to excommunicate yourself from society. So that's more how the pattern is going now. And so there's a more holistic look at spirituality, like how do you combine spirituality with this physical existence. So I would implore you, don't get caught up in the idea that you're just doing it for the sake of opening up these upper chakras that have to do with intuition and spirituality and being divine. Marion Woodman has a great quote, and she basically said that, spirit without matter is a ghost, and matter without spirit is a corpse. So either way, what you're dealing with is dead. So make sure that you spend just as much time developing the lower chakras. That's really your foundation. You want to be treating the chakras in the same way that you would want to treat yourself if you were a tree. So you want your roots to go really, really deep in the ground. You want your spiritual practice to be grounded and rooted in reality, so that your branches can grow way out to the sky and still be stable and produce good fruit because it's rooted in strong soil. So make sure that you really focus on those lower chakras. Focus on making sure that your life is stable, having good relationships, making sure that you have self-respect and self-esteem. All right, so now that we have that covered, let's go ahead and let's go into each individual chakra, and I'll give you just a brief overview of them. I'll probably make in the future videos on each chakra just so we can go more in depth on each one, but for now I'm just going to give you a brief overview. Now, the chakras are described as spinning vortexes in particular areas of the body, but they're also associated with particular areas of the nerve ganglia and different glands within the body. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to give you that as I describe each one of the chakras. All right, so first we'll go over the root chakra, which is located at the base of the spine. It's the lowest chakra and the most physical. This is also called Muladhara, which means root support. It's a feminine chakra, and it's most associated with survival and abundance in the material world. And it also has to do with being grounded in reality. And this chakra is associated with the color red. So signs that this chakra is working properly and is open and balanced and all that good stuff is that you feel like it's okay for you to be here. You feel okay to take up space. You feel valid to exist. You don't always have to prove your worth to other people. So if you have problems with inferiority or superiority to others, then it's probably not working properly. Other signs that it's working properly are that you tend to be pretty stable as a person in your life situation. Like a lot of times people who aren't stable in this way might have a tendency to have their life fall apart a lot, or to move from place to place or from relationship to relationship. So having stability in your situation probably means that your root chakra is working properly. Some signs that this chakra is maybe not working properly is being ungrounded in reality, maybe being too caught up in particular ideas or ideologies, being unstable in your living situation or in your relationships. A lot of times what I notice is that spiritual people have a tendency to like spiritually bypass and like always be up in their head and thinking this and that way about spirituality, but then all of this out here, all of this material stuff, they kind of let go, and they live in subpar kind of situations. So that's something you have to watch out for. You don't want to get caught up in spiritual bypassing. Also, people who maybe have an overactive chakra in this way might tend to be greedy, or maybe be obsessed with money or something like that. So that's also a problem. You could also fall on the other side of the horse. All right, the second chakra is the sacral chakra, also called Svadhisthana, which means sweetness. It's located in the lower abdomen and is associated with the ovaries in women and the testicles in men. It's a feminine chakra, and its element is water, and it's responsible for creativity and instinct and sexuality, desire, pleasure, and things like that. It's also responsible for relationship, but on a more instinctual level, like on our level where we need to procreate or we need to form bonds with other people close to us. And it is associated with the color orange. Signs that this chakra is working properly are that you feel okay with your desires and your instincts. You're okay with your animal nature as well as your higher nature. You also feel okay expressing yourself sexually toward your partner. You're not suffering from sexual repression in any way, and you have healthy sexual relationships as well as non-sexual relationships. You also have a sensitivity to your emotions and your intuition, and you feel okay with that being so. And oftentimes people who are in touch with their sacral chakra also have an outpouring of creativity. Signs that this chakra is out of balance or overactive or underactive are that you have sexual repression or sexual obsession. You can go on one side or the other. Or maybe you have a hard time creating relationships with other people, and maybe you feel isolated. Or maybe you're the type that needs to always be around people and cannot be by yourself. So a lot of times this one works in extremes. Also, hedonism and overindulgence, that type of thing can be a problem, as well as numbness to emotions or instability of emotions, where you feel your emotions so strongly and overpoweringly that you can't keep your life stable. All right, the next chakra is the solar plexus chakra, also called Manipura, which means lustrous gem. It's located in the center of the abdomen in the solar plexus region. And it is associated with the pancreas and a lot of the organs around that, like the liver. The solar plexus chakra is a feminine chakra, although it is associated with the masculine element fire. This chakra is associated with self-esteem, personal empowerment, willpower, and just generally having personal autonomy and the ability to plan and be effective in action. This chakra is all about respect for yourself as an individual and the ability to have self-love, self-efficacy, self-empowerment. It is associated with the color yellow. Now, very often with this chakra, it becomes much maligned for people trying to transcend their ego because they're trying to get away from this idea that they're a separate self. But the problem here is that the ego cannot be transcended on this level because it's too physical. You have to respect yourself as a separate individual, even if you transcend the ego, because your body will still fold to the laws of nature. You still have to protect yourself. You still have to be a self-advocate. So if you're trying to repress the ego on this level, it's never going to result in any kind of transcendence. You're just repressing your natural drive for self-preservation. Signs that this chakra is working properly is that you have the ability to plan and create decisive action, and that you're able to think strategically. You know, you want to think of this particular chakra as like your inner warrior. So a person who has an open solar plexus chakra feels okay with being assertive, feels okay with taking up space, feels okay with being a separate individual. Now, somebody who doesn't have their solar plexus working properly might feel like they have, or kind of a doormat or something, or they might be on the other side of the horse where they're too assertive and they have this domineering dominator mentality. Both of those are unhealthy expressions of the solar plexus chakra. Another issue can be if somebody has a weak ego or too big of an ego. So this is another one of those extremes where if you're not in balance with this one, you're going to be too much, you're going to be too self-centered, or you're going to be crushed under the wheel of life because you're not actually respecting yourself as a separate individual. All right, the fourth chakra is the heart chakra, also called Anahata, which means unstruck. This is right in the center of the chakras. It's the fourth chakra, so it's right in the middle of the 7 chakras. It is neither a masculine nor a feminine chakra, but it is where both the feminine chakras meet with the masculine chakras. And it is representative of the sacred marriage. The element here is air, which is a masculine element. In being part of the sacred marriage alchemically, it is where spirit and matter meet. This is why a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on the heart chakra. It is the meeting of worlds. The heart chakra is located in the center of the chest and is associated with the heart and the thymus gland. The heart chakra is responsible for compassion, love, unity, and respect. It is responsible for the ability to relate deeply and have empathy for others, and to be able to exercise compassion and love for yourself and for others. The heart chakra is also associated with the color green. Signs that the heart chakra is working properly is that you have the ability to feel empathy for others. You're able to walk in other people's shoes. You're able to not judge people, but to feel the connection between yourself and that other person. You also have healthy relationships, and you can relate deeply without being emotionally numb or bypassing through living in your head. So, you know, instead, a lot of people have a blocked heart chakra when they start to, let's say, become very abstract and start living in their head in order to avoid their emotions. So being able to feel your emotions strongly and accurately, and being able to admit to your emotions, is also part of having a healthy heart chakra. Some signs that it might be working improperly is like if you want other people to fail. So oftentimes, like people who, let's say, they're trying really, really hard to succeed in life, and let's say that their idea of success is they want to have a nice house and a nice car, and they haven't been able to necessarily pull that off, but then they see their neighbor who has been able to pull off getting a nice house or a nice car, a friend of theirs, you know, who's been able to get a nice house or a nice car, and then there's this feeling of resentment. Being unable to feel happy for other people's successes. That's a sign that the heart chakra is not working properly. You know, also wanting better for yourself than for other people, or wanting better for other people than for yourself. There's an important bit of equality that you're going to want for yourself and for others to do well. Other signs that the heart chakra is out of whack are judgment, or pettiness, or, just being greedy and just wanting all the good things for yourself and then wanting to stand out from other people to the degree that you want negatively for them. Also, self-hatred, self-loathing, feeling inferior, or if a person begins to care more about their ideas and ideologies than they do about people. Like if their ideologies makes them completely ignore the plights of other people. So they're not able to put themselves in another person's shoes because they get so stuck on their ideology. Also, extreme hierarchical thinking is another example of this, where you begin to assign values to certain people or certain types of people and thinking, oh, well, people who are like this, they're worth more than people who are like this. And really, I'm more like that because, when you start to assign these value judgments to people, this creates a distance from you and your heart. The fifth chakra is the throat chakra, called Visuddha, which means purification. It is the first masculine chakra, and it is associated with the element sound, because now we're moving outside of the physical. It is the first step outside of the physical. And so this has more to do with vibration than anything material. It is located in the neck and throat region, and it is associated with the thyroid and the parathyroid. This is most associated with self-expression and authenticity. This is responsible for clarity of communication and honesty, as well as feeling comfortable with expressing opinions and perspectives. It is associated with the color blue. Signs that the throat chakra is working properly is the ability to openly and honestly express your opinions, the ability for self-expression in general through creative projects or through speech. A person with an open throat chakra sees their emotions and others' emotions as valid and respects other people's opinions and perspectives as well as their own. It is also associated with the ability to access and to express creative ideas. Signs that the throat chakra is blocked or not working properly: if a person feels uncomfortable expressing their perspective or opinion. A lot of times people don't like to express their opinion or preferences because they feel like their opinion is not valid or will get them some kind of judgment. So if you ever in social situations feel yourself holding back your opinions for more than just politeness to the other person, but for fear of judgment, then there are probably some issues with the throat chakra. All right, the sixth chakra is the third eye chakra, also called Ajna, which means to perceive. This is also a masculine chakra, and its element is light and has to do with vision. It is located in the center of the forehead and is associated with the pineal gland, intuition, insight, imagination, and the mental life. It is associated with the color indigo. Signs that the third eye chakra is working properly is the valuing of the internal life and the mental life. Actually prioritizing the inner world as much as you prioritize the outer world. Now, you don't want to ignore or neglect the outer world, but you want to put a sort of equal weight on what goes on internally for you. Also, the ability to take on new perspectives, even ones that are seemingly in opposition to what your perspective is. The ability for open-mindedness. The ability to be non-judgmental and to be open-ended and to feel cognitive dissonance. Signs that the third eye chakra is not working properly are dogmatic or rigid thinking. And this is true whether it's religious dogmatism or any other type of dogmatism, any kind of perspective that you could possibly be hung up on. If you're hung up on it, then your third eye chakra is probably not working at optimum level. Also, some symptoms can be confusion and cloudedness. Don't have clarity as to what you want to do in life. Don't have the ability to project out into the future to see where you want to bring yourself. Or a disconnection from emotions or your intuition. People who value the third eye chakra too much or value the internal life far more than the external life can get caught up in spiritual bypassing. Being stuck on ideas and ideologies is also another sign that the third eye chakra is not working properly. All right, the final chakra that we'll be talking about is the seventh chakra, or the crown chakra, also called Sahasrara, which means thousandfold. And the reason why it is called thousandfold is because it's associated with enlightenment. And the symbol is a lotus with 1,000 petals, meaning that you're opening that lotus flower up to a more divine, more expansive perspective. So this is associated with the divine. It is a masculine chakra, and its element is consciousness itself. This chakra is associated with the spiritual, the immaterial, consciousness itself, the thing that actually comes down into life here, the consciousness that basically all of this occurs within. The crown chakra is located at the top of the head and is associated with the pituitary gland. It is associated with the color violet. Some signs that this chakra is working properly is a feeling of connection to everything in existence, that feeling of oneness. Another aspect is the ability to accept reality and self as it is, because you recognize that it comes from a divine source. And that's not on the intellectual level, that's like on an actual experiential level you realize. Some signs of malfunction are feeling isolated, feeling like you're this separate person, interfacing with a harsh reality. You might be dogmatic, or you might get too hung up on ideas. Also, having a spiritual ego or being too stuck on spiritual or religious ideas is another pitfall of having a closed or not working properly crown chakra. And probably the biggest one is unawareness and repression of aspects of self and reality. So if you have a resistance to any of your emotions or any of your traits or anything out in reality, chances are you have issues with your crown chakra. All right, so as I said before, the point in opening and balancing the chakras is not somehow to get to those upper chakras, those more spiritual chakras. It's not all about that. It's about creating a channel, a healthy channel from the very most material aspects of life to the spiritual aspects of life. So remember, just like that tree that I mentioned earlier, you want to have your roots deep, deep in the healthy soil so that your branches can reach up into the sky and grow good fruit. You can't just prioritize the fruit or the branches. So when it comes to this channel, you can either take the energy and move it down through the chakras, or you can take the energy and move it up through the chakras. And in the book Wheels of Life by Anahata Judith, which I actually took quite a bit of the information, the factual information about the chakras that I just talked about. So if you're interested, definitely look into that book. But basically, there's the liberating current, where you take the energy from the most physical and you move it up toward the most spiritual. And it's all about transcending the physical aspects of life, but you also have to be rooted in the physical aspects of life to do this. Or you have the manifesting current, which is actually really popular nowadays with the whole law of attraction thing and being able to create what you want in your life, where you take things from just the aspect of consciousness and you bring them down into physical reality. This also works really well if you're a creative person, because if you think about it, creative idea starts up here as an insight, and then you have an idea which goes down to the third eye chakra. Throat chakra, you start to express your idea, and then you bring it into fruition through lower and lower stages of these chakras until you have something physical and something that exists in the physical world for other people to enjoy and to experience. So that's the liberating current and the manifesting current. Now I want to talk a little bit, just a little tiny bit, about Kundalini. So Kundalini is basically said to be a serpent that is coiled at the base of the spine by the root chakra, and it represents the feminine aspect, Shakti. And whenever the Kundalini serpent wakes up, it goes up through the channels of the spine and out through the top of the head to meet Shiva, which is the divine aspect, the masculine. And it goes through the left and right channels next to the chakras that kind of crisscross through them, called Ida and Pingala. And this is associated with a very intense spiritual awakening called a Kundalini Awakening. Now, my advice is to not directly try to induce a Kundalini Awakening, even though that can sound very, very attractive. Anytime I've ever tried to do that in the past, I've always ended up getting sick, or something physiologically has happened that's kind of on the negative side. Like, I think I've tried 3 times The first time I got a rash at the base of my spine, which I thought was very unusual. And then the other 2 times I ended up just getting sick. One time very nauseous, and the other time I was sick for several days with a fever. And now these things, I guess, could be just coincidental, but I don't think so, because if you think about the way that emotions kind of store in the body when they're unresolved, and the fact that the spinal cord really does carry quite a lot of information, you have to imagine that that channel, when you're going through and you're becoming aware of things, you know, there's probably some sort of residual emotions there. And those can be very, very intense. So just be very careful. I would just, when you meditate on the chakras, I wouldn't try to manipulate them very much, but more so to just become aware of the sensations that are actually there, you know, and just be very gentle. And if you ever feel sick, or if you feel overheated or nauseous, anything like that, I recommend just taking a little break from your meditation and then come back to it later, because there's no reason to make yourself sick. You don't want to wake up the Kundalini prematurely, because this can cause a lot of physiological and psychological issues. So now that I have that little caution out of the way, let's talk about how to meditate on the chakras. So a lot of times you might hear yoga teachers or meditation teachers talk about breathing into a specific area of the body, you would actually bring the breath to an area. Now, it does feel this way, so I will say that when you focus on the chakras, bring your breath to that area, but what's really happening is that the awareness, your breath is actually carrying your awareness to that area. What happens is every time you breathe, the breath affects the entire body in very, very subtle ways that you don't normally focus on and you're not normally aware of. So what I do is I start at the root chakra. I use my breath to carry my awareness down there. And oftentimes I'll feel maybe little stiff areas, or areas that just don't want me to focus on them that much, where it's hard for me to become aware. And there's almost a numbness to these areas. It's like my breath doesn't affect them as much. And those are what you're trying to become aware of. You're trying to bring your awareness down into there, because when residual emotional energy gets stored in the body, it has a stiffness to it. You know, you can feel it very physically. And so what I notice is that when I do that and I focus on a particular area for a while until my awareness does actually penetrate the sensation, after that there's a natural rising that happens up through the spinal cord. And this could also be sort of that energy release that's associated with the chakras. Now, I've never experienced the chakras as having any color or having an actual existence as a spinning vortex. However, it does feel, whenever you're actually focusing on those areas and you're bringing your breath down into those areas, there's a contraction that happens. And then when you release your breath, there's an expansion that happens. And that does have kind of an orb-like feel to it. So if you bring your focus to those sensations associated with the root chakra, what you'll notice is you'll have this kind of feel, and then when you release, you'll have this kind of feel. It almost feels like an expanse happening. And you can feel the kind of global splash that happens throughout the rest of that area. So you'll notice that the other parts of your back may be affected whenever you're focused on a certain area. So, you know, just I would use chakra meditation as an ability to become more aware of what's already there. Visualization can be helpful too, but I would say that make sure that you're not inventing sensations, and make sure that you're not inventing something that isn't there. Use it as a means of becoming aware of what's already there. There are some effective visualizations that you can use. Oftentimes when I like to start by imagining that there's a white light traveling up through the soles of my feet and all the way up through my body. And I first do a body scan meditation, just real quick, a 5-minute thing, just to become aware of all areas of my body. And then I revert my attention back down to the root chakra, and I pretend I visualize in my head that there's this white or golden light that just kind of goes through that area. And that's sort of my visualization for my awareness, what I'm trying to bring into it. But this visualization, it's not necessary. You know, you can just focus on the sensations. It's just sometimes these visualizations can be helpful. Also, focusing on, let's say, the color red when you're focused on the root chakra, or the color purple when you're focused on the crown chakra, because those are what they're associated with. I find that this can be helpful too, but again, the visualization is not necessary. What's most necessary is to become aware of whatever the sensations are that are there. You know, use this as another method for sort of almost clearing the body of emotional buildup. Like, I like to kind of think of it as like checking your emotional emails. Like, if you don't check your emails, you can't delete them. Once you actually become aware of the residual emotional signatures in your body, then they just kind of naturally go away because you've tuned yourself into the wisdom of the body. And so I find that chakra meditation is very, very helpful for this. Anyway, so that's all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned. In the future, at some point, I'll be doing a separate video for each one of the chakras. I don't know when that will be, but I'll try to release them all in probably the same week. So it'll probably take me several months to get enough videos accumulated until then. But keep your eyes peeled open if you're interested in knowing more about the chakras. Also, in this channel, I share my own personal experiences being on the spiritual path. I am a seeker of enlightenment myself, and I've been a seeker for about 7 years now, but real serious in the past 1.5 years. And so if you ever want to hear my perspectives, or, you know, maybe I have some stumbling blocks that I've come across or whatever, like, I definitely recommend you subscribe to this channel. Other than that's all I have for you, and until next time, keep becoming more you.